Have you ever felt like you're waking up from a dream you didn't even know you had? Like something ancient is silently watching over the back of your everyday life, the names you give yourself, the age you claim to be, the roles you play, a part of you that wasn't born in this body, and that won't die with it. Nikola Tesla said, "What we call reality is just one of many frequencies. Change the frequency and you change reality." But what if changing the frequency unlocks something else? What if it unlocks a forgotten memory, not of the mind, but of the soul? The science that Tesla envisioned extended far beyond wires and coils. He spoke of an invisible field that connected everything, thoughts, feelings, souls. A field that not only connected but also stored memories, experiences, life. So when we talk about reincarnation, we are not talking about fantasy or superstition. We are touching the essence of a deep vibrational principle. Nothing is lost. Everything changes. Even you. From an early age, Tesla saw the world differently. He heard sounds that others could not hear. His mind would conjure up images of machines that had not yet been invented. He said that these ideas did not come to him. He simply absorbed them, as if his brain were an antenna. But what exactly? This question guided him throughout his life. And the answer to it began to come when he realized that everything vibrates. Everything is in motion, and the soul is perhaps the most subtle and stable vibration. What we call life is not a beginning. It is just a fleeting manifestation of something much bigger. And that is why some people remember things they never experienced, or speak with wisdom they never learned. That is why some pain has no apparent source, and some encounters fade into centuries-old memories in a single glance. But where does this memory come from, and what does it want to tell us? The answer may lie in what Tesla feared most, but also what he desired most: the invisible. He said that the visible world is just a veil over a great mystery, and the most powerful energy in the universe is what we cannot see. When we think of the soul, we often think of it as something supernatural, abstract, a philosophical idea with no physical basis. But Tesla believed that the soul is a frequency, a unique energy signal, and like all frequencies, it can be modulated, recorded, and transmitted. This changes everything, because if the soul is a vibration, then everything it experiences, all its joys, fears, and lessons learned, gets imprinted in it as vibration patterns, as records, as information that does not disappear with the death of the body, but remains preserved, waiting for a new chance. Thus, reincarnation ceases to be a belief and becomes a natural consequence of spiritual physics. The body dissolves, the vibration remains, and when it finds the conditions for a new manifestation, it returns, not as a replica, but as a continuation. And this is where it gets really troubling. If this is true, then there are parts of you that do not belong to this life. These parts come from the past, and they silently influence everything. Your choices, your suffering, your talents, your choices. Have you ever wondered why you are attracted to certain cultures, even if you are unfamiliar with them? Have you ever felt a strange uneasiness in certain places, as if something inside you is telling you to get lost? Have you ever felt that a certain conversation, situation, street, has happened before, even though your mind tells you otherwise? For Tesla, these experiences were not mere coincidences or illusions. They were movements in the vibrational field of the soul. Fragments of the old frequency were trying to manifest through a new life. What if that's true? What if every strong emotion you have is a reflection of something you've already experienced? What if every innate talent you have is an awakened memory? What if the fears you have are not yours, but your soul's? This is why so many people feel an emptiness that can't be filled, an unnamed longing, an endless search. Because deep down, they're not just looking outside themselves. They're trying to remember who they really are. Tesla knew this. So instead of denying the invisible, he discovered it. His experiments with electric fields, frequencies, and resonances were not only scientific, they were also related to consciousness. He believed that just as instruments receive radio waves, humans can also receive echoes coming from other beings. The body is just a receiver, and the true sender is beyond space and time. This vision opens doors. And it's also frightening, because if our present life is just one of many, the responsibility is enormous. We don't start anew. We keep moving forward. We find our inheritance. And this is where the beauty of this idea comes in. It turns suffering into knowledge. pain into a journey, mistakes into lessons. If you have lived, every present test is not a punishment, but an opportunity. Life ceases to be random, and it becomes, as Tesla said, a vibration orchestra in search of harmony, but it goes deeper than that. If the soul carries information from other lives, it also carries relationships, connections, old relationships. Maybe that love that has left such a deep mark on your memory is actually a reunion. Maybe that person you hate is an unlearned lesson. Maybe your calling, your gift, your vocation has already been lived and is now returning, begging to be expressed. It is not a theory. It is a feeling. It is an awareness. Many people report experiences they cannot explain. A child speaking a language he has never heard. An adult having recurring nightmares of things he has never seen. A young man playing an instrument as if he has known it for centuries. How can this be explained? Tesla understood all of this. Consciousness is not in the brain, it is in the field, and that field is eternal. The soul's memory may not be accessible to the rational mind, but it survives in instincts, intuition, creative impulses, dreams, and synchronicities. So when you feel something else, you don't imagine it. You feel it. You connect with it. You connect with the true frequency of your being for a moment. This frequency does not lie. It does not deteriorate. It does not forget. That is why, despite all beliefs, religions, and doubts, the idea of reincarnation still persists, because it speaks directly to the soul, not to logic. It touches the things hidden behind the name, biography, and personality. It tells that you are more than you think. But why do we forget everything when we are reborn? Tesla believed that forgetting is a form of protection from vibrations. If we remembered everything, our soul would be lost in a maze of guilt, longing, and mistakes. The veil of forgetting gives us a chance to start anew, but it does not prevent us from feeling. That's why the soul sends us signs, unexplainable fears, strange desires, unexplainable emotions, inexplicable talents, people who touch us deeply for no apparent reason. These are all signs, and if you start to understand them not as coincidences but as messages, everything will change. You will start to listen, and as you listen, you will start to remember, not with your mind, but with your whole being. This is the point where life is no longer just an external script. It becomes an internal journey, reconnecting with your spiritual tradition, with your dormant talents, with the mission that has been beating in your heart for centuries. Tesla knew that the future of humanity depended on more than technology. He said, "When science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in a single decade than in all the previous centuries. And this decade begins when you allow yourself to feel things beyond logic, when you realize that you are not here by chance, but because there is something here that only you can do, something that your soul has been striving for, maybe for hundreds of years. And if you feel this truth within you, this is your calling, because everything that is to come, all the signs, stories, and revelations, will only make sense if you are ready to remember. And now the question arises, are you ready to hear what your soul has to say? Have you ever felt a sense of fear for no reason? Sudden panic in front of water, even if you have never drowned. Uneasiness in a confined space, even if you have never been trapped. Or perhaps a feeling of dread when looking over a cliff, even though you have never slipped. These feelings may not be part of your current story. They may be part of your soul's story. Nikola Tesla said that emotions are accumulated vibrational charges that resonate like constantly active circuits in the human energy field. In his view, what we call fear may be nothing more than a recurring frequency, an unresolved memory that echoes through time. For Tesla, time was never linear, but circular, flexible, and alive. If the soul has experienced traumatic events in past lives, it is possible that some emotional traces have been imprinted in its vibrational field. These traces do not die with the body but remain, and when the soul returns, these effects may manifest as fear for no apparent reason, unexplained discomfort, or blockages that defy any rational explanation. There is something terrifying about this idea, but at the same time, there is something deeply liberating about it, because if pain has a source, it can be understood, and if it can be understood, it can be treated. Imagine a little girl named Clara. Since childhood, she had been afraid of thunderstorms. When she closed the window, she felt an unbearable shudder. The thunder would make her tremble. Her parents tried everything, psychologists, therapy, medication. Nothing worked. Finally, after an intense thinking session, Clara saw images she didn't have in her mind. A soaked woman running, lightning striking an open field, screams, and a tragic end, all around lights and sounds. The memories were not as clear as in the movies, but they were vivid. When Clara first woke up, she felt relief. Not immediately, but the fear began to fade slowly, as if she now knew where it came from. For Tesla, this was not absurd. It was simply a manifestation of the vibratory nature of the soul. He saw man as an energy coil that resonates with every experience he has had in this life and other lives. Fear, he said, is simply a field that vibrates in dissonance. But once identified, it can be rebuilt, and rebuilding begins with awareness. But fear is not the only clue the spirit leaves. There is also a mysterious and sometimes disturbing phenomenon, déjà vu. You step into a house for the first time, but you know every room. Someone says a phrase, and you realize you've heard it before. Traveling in a foreign country, suddenly a street, a staircase, a color, everything seems eerily familiar. What is this? The most common explanation is that it's a glitch in the brain, a sort of short-term memory loss. But Tesla believed in something even deeper. He said that time is not a river flowing in one direction, but a field where different moments exist simultaneously, and consciousness sometimes reaches beyond the physical present. In other words, déjà vu may be a real memory, not of the mind, but of the soul. Consider the case of an architect named Miguel who, on his first trip to an ancient city in Europe, began describing buildings he had never seen before. His friends found this fascinating until he led them to a secret courtyard without a map and pointed out a stone well. When they arrived, the well was exactly where he had described it. Miguel had never been to this country before. He didn't speak the language, but I felt like I knew every street. It was like a trip down memory lane, absurd but vivid. Tesla allegedly claimed that Miguel had received a vibrational fragment from another being. His consciousness had become focused on a past point in the spirit realm for a period of time. He had not made this up. He had simply remembered it. These memories are not created by chance. They are created when a resonance field is formed, when the vibrations of the physical body, the environment, and the soul are in sync. It is as if for a moment everything starts vibrating at the same frequency, and the veil of oblivion falls. This brings us to another common experience: instantly recognizing people you've never met before. You meet someone and in a matter of minutes you feel as if you've known them for years. Or conversely, for no apparent reason, you feel an intense repulsion towards someone. Is this also a memory? Tesla said that souls come together in groups, in cycles, and when we reincarnate, we often return with the same souls, in different roles, sometimes as children, sometimes as parents, sometimes as friends, sometimes as rivals, but always as mirrors. When you feel a direct connection with someone, don't assume it's just your imagination. It could be an old memory emerging from the spirit realm. It could be an echo of a pact made centuries ago. It could be a reunion planned long before this life began. These connections, whether delicate or complex, do not happen by chance. They are part of the karmic field that shapes our experience. They provide opportunities for healing, learning, and fulfillment. And the soul knows this, even if the mind struggles to understand it. But if all this is happening inside us, these fears, these beliefs, these memories, then why can't we remember clearly? Tesla believed the answer lies in the frequency at which we live. He said that most people operate at very low frequencies and are only concerned with the material world. They are concerned with money, appearance, and survival. But there are others at higher frequencies where the soul manifests more clearly. This is why in altered states of consciousness, such as deep sleep, intense meditation, or near-death experiences, people report unexplained visions, memories, and sensations. These are not hallucinations. They are accessing a different range of vibrations. They are entering the realm of the spirit, and everything is written in this field. Tesla believed that the true science of the future would combine physics with consciousness. People would be able to access inner records, hidden memories, and recurring patterns by expanding their perceptions. And in this way, they would be able to heal their emotional wounds based on true understanding, rather than merely superficial healing. Imagine the consequences. If fear can be understood as an echo of a past trauma, it can be healed with compassion rather than guilt. If talent can be understood as a gift from past lives, it can be developed with more courage and less hesitation. And if encounters can be understood as reunions, perhaps life will become less a series of coincidences, but a sacred fabric, woven from vibrations older than we can imagine. Everything changes, and the soul, which was previously silent, now begins to speak louder, not with words, but with signs, with feelings, with intuition, with synchronicity, because she knows that you are ready to listen to her. But there is a subtle point here. By accepting these memories, we are not escaping reality, we are extending it. The real danger is not in believing that we have lived many lives before, but in believing that this life is the only one that matters. This belief makes us short-sighted, selfish, and hasty. When we understand that the soul moves in cycles, we begin to act with greater awareness, more responsibility, and more kindness. It doesn't matter whether you believe in reincarnation or not. What matters is how you feel when you hear it. If something stirs inside you, if there's an echo in your chest, it's probably not just curiosity. It might be the first sign of a memory. So this journey is not an attempt to prove something. It is an attempt to wake up, awakening to a truth that cannot be taught. It has to be accepted. Nikola Tesla was looking for this very truth in his lonely nights, among the sparks and equations, trying to understand why he felt he already knew what he hadn't yet discovered. He didn't invent, he remembered. And that's why he said, "My inventions are just echoes of something that already exists on another level." What if you also copy? What if these strange feelings, these inexplicable memories, these strong fears and attachments, are different pieces of a puzzle that your soul is trying to put together? If this is true, the next step is not denial, but observation, realization, asking questions, and perhaps for the first time, I am able to hear what is pulsating behind the silence, because sometimes the soul just needs a window to open, a space, a moment of meditation. What if that moment comes right now? Have you ever met a child who understands the world in a way that even adults don't, who looks into your eyes and sees something deep, as if he can understand what you're not saying? A child who listens more than he talks, who prefers to watch rather than compete, and who carries a slight melancholy inside, as if longing for something he doesn't even know the name of. These kids exist, and they are no exception. Nikola Tesla, who was a scientist, said that there are some beings among us that are not new at all. They did not appear for the first time, but returned. And the most obvious sign of this is their appearance, an ancient appearance, an appearance that carries thousands of years of history even on a young face. These beings are called old souls. But what exactly does old soul mean? Tesla believed that the soul behaves like a sensitive electromagnetic field, accumulating experience from its many passages through matter. And just as a magnetic field wordlessly affects the surrounding space, so the ancient soul affects everything it touches through its presence. Have you ever noticed that some people, even when they are silent, change the energy of a room? They enter the space, and everything changes instantly. Not by force, but by vibration. This is not a miracle. This is spiritual memory, which radiates subtly. These souls do not emerge because they want attention. They emerge because they do not need it. There is a density in their energy field that is invisible to the eye, but can be felt by the heart. This density is built up from losses, discoveries, and healings accumulated over many lifetimes. But how can you know if you are one of these souls? This question cannot be answered logically. It can be answered emotionally. If you feel that the world is deeper than it appears, if you are easily influenced, but not by ordinary things, but by silent gestures, old songs, and sincere glances. If you find it difficult to adjust to social life, and you prefer harsh reality to the comfort of illusions, then perhaps your soul has moved a long way. But what if it's just sensitivity? Tesla used to say that sensitivity is not a weakness, it is a high frequency, and the more evolved the soul becomes, the more sensitive it becomes, not because it cannot cope with the world, but because it experiences much more than the world reveals. And with this awareness come gifts. Some people are born with wisdom. They didn't learn it, but they know it. They can comfort, sing, paint, heal, and when asked where this wisdom came from, they say, "I feel it. I just know." Tesla called this spontaneous vibrational resonance. It is a kind of spontaneous activation of abilities trained in other lifetimes, abilities that lie dormant in the soul's energy field until a body is found to express them. Have you ever seen a child play an instrument as if he has been practicing it for years? Or write poems without understanding grammar? Or solve complex problems with intuitive logic that baffles even teachers? Is it just talent? Or memory? What if your soul has already lived in ancient temples, studied in esoteric schools forgotten by time, practiced the sacred arts, contemplated nature with eyes that hear the invisible? Perhaps what you call interest is simply a craving disguised as curiosity. And what you call a gift is your soul knocking at your door, asking you to continue what you started next time. But why do so many people forget this? Tesla argued that the noise of the modern world takes us away from our inner frequency. He said that just as a radio station can only be heard when tuned correctly, the soul can only express itself in silence, presence, and truth. In other words, if you are constantly distracted, chasing things you don't need, trying to please people who don't even see you, it's natural that you are not listening to your soul. And in this suffocating silence, an ancient spirit lurks. It waits. It waits for you to stop, to breathe, to look within. But have you ever felt like this? A pause, a moment when time seems to have stopped, an inexplicably deep feeling, a sudden connection with someone you've just met, a sudden scream, a shudder from a tune, a dream that seems more real than the next day. These are the moments when the soul speaks, and when she speaks, even for a second, you feel her, you know her, you remember her. But what to do with this memory? Most people experience these feelings but then ignore them. They get busy with their daily routine. They forget. But some people decide to listen. And listening to the voice of your soul is the first step to living a meaningful life. Tesla said that purpose is not something you seek, but something you allow to manifest. There is no need to create a new talent. You need to awaken the talent that is already inside you. You don't need to look for something outside. You need to uncover what is inside you. This is why many old souls suffer, because they live with the constant feeling that they are out of place, out of time, out of logic. They feel they don't fit into this world, and really, they don't fit. But this is not a mistake, this is a mission. These souls came to remember. They came to support fading frequencies. They came to maintain a connection with subtle levels, forgotten truths, invisible signs. And if you think so, then maybe you are not here to fit in, but to stand out in a different zone. A zone where love is more important than status, where silence is more valuable than appearances, where existence is more real than appearances. This may be why you feel different. And if this difference is not understood, it can lead to isolation, insecurity, and loneliness. But the difference is not a loss, it is a sign. This is a sign that your soul has lived for so long that it can no longer accept what is in front of it with closed eyes. And this realization can hurt. It can make you cry, but it can also heal. Because the more you understand who you are, the less effect the world has on you. Tesla lived it. He was misunderstood, mocked, rejected, but he never lost his originality. He knew who he was. And even when he wasn't listened to, he kept speaking. He said, "I don't invent, I discover." And what you can do with your soul, open it up. You don't need to change. You need to remember. Remember what your soul already knows, what you came with but forgot, what you feel but don't name. And if all of this is true, then perhaps your discomfort with the world is the greatest gift you've ever received. Because it's a sign that you're not speechless, you're alive, you're listening. And listening is the beginning of liberation. But be careful. The world will try to suppress it. They will say it is exaggeration. They will call it hypersensitivity. They will try to convince you that it is safer to be like everyone else. But this is not so. True security lies in wholeness. And wholeness means holding your light and your shadow, your wisdom and your doubts, your wounds and your talents, all as part of the same frequency, your own self. And if you feel like you don't fit in, maybe it's because you came in to create a new look. Maybe you're not weird. Maybe you're irreplaceable. Your old self may have gotten tired of waiting and is trying to remind you who you are now. The question is, will you listen? Some people seem to be born with abilities that defy all known logic. They don't learn them. They just do them, effortlessly, without explanation. The child who sits down at the piano for the first time and plays a complicated melody. The teenager who draws with surgical precision, as if he has been practicing for decades. The adult who masters manual techniques without any training. Such moments leave onlookers speechless. But is there really no explanation? Nikola Tesla believed that extraordinary gifts are not accidental. To him, everything in the universe is energy organized into vibrational patterns, and the human soul, which is the highest form of conscious energy, also stores these patterns. Just as an electromagnetic field can store invisible information, the soul can hold on to knowledge acquired in past lives and express it by finding the right body and context. Imagine that you are not starting from scratch, that you are not a blank slate from birth, but an unfinished number. You bring with you your own vibrational burden, made up of past experiences, subtle memories, and already developed skills. Perhaps what we call a gift is just a part of this burden that manifests in reality. This concept goes far beyond theory. There are thousands of documented cases around the world in which people have displayed extraordinary talents without any training or genetic explanation. One of the most impressive cases is that of Edgar Cayce, a talented artist who began drawing with incredible technique at the age of 4. By the age of 6, she was drawing as if she were a Renaissance master. She claimed that these drawings arose from dreams and visions, as if she was simply remembering what she already knew. Another example is Derek Amato, who woke up after hitting his head in a swimming pool and was suddenly given the ability to play the piano. He had never studied music. He described this experience as seeing patterns of light directed at his fingers. Scientists have classified this case as acquired savant syndrome, but they still cannot explain the origin of the technical expertise he displays. Such cases only scratch the surface of a much larger problem. According to research led by Dr. Jim Tucker, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, hundreds of children have given verifiable accounts of past lives, including speaking languages they've never heard or displaying abilities beyond their age. One of Tucker's most interesting hypotheses is that in some cases the reincarnation process happens so quickly that the scars of a past life remain active in the new body. But if science is just beginning to recognize these possibilities, Tesla was talking about this more than a century ago. He argued that the human brain is only a receiver, and the real mind is in that area. So consciousness is like a transmitter tuned to different frequencies. And in these cases, talent would be a manifestation of an ancient frequency, one that the soul already knows and simply reactivates. If this is true, then we need to change our whole approach to learning. Perhaps learning is not about acquiring something new, but about uncovering what is already within us. And perhaps the real function of education is not to teach, but to enable the soul to remember. This vision changes everything. It changes the way we think about kids. It changes the way we think about diplomas. It changes the way we think about our own abilities. Perhaps the talent you feel inside you, but have never had the courage to unleash, is your soul's greatest desire. Perhaps the desire to sing, write, heal, teach, even without any formal training, is not in vain. It is a calling. And why do so many people ignore it? Because the world teaches us not to trust everything that comes easily. We live in a society that only values visible effort. If something comes naturally, it is called trivial. If something is not studied, it is not valid. But Tesla warned us, the most valuable things are those that come quietly. He said that his most important inventions came from moments of thought, not effort. They appeared complete, perfect, as if they already existed. What if you already have the skills you need? What if what you perceive as lightness is actually a memory? But don't think this only applies to the arts. Many people have talents that stem from technical skills, inherited knowledge, or extraordinary abilities. A tailor who never studied design makes impeccably cut dresses. A masseur who can identify pain points without asking. A gardener who understands plants as if they were talking to him. All of these can be manifestations of the soul. Tesla knew that human intelligence is not limited to the intellect. He said that a special kind of knowledge comes from the etheric world, which can only be accessed by those who are willing to listen to the invisible. This is why many of these people cannot explain what they do. They just keep doing it. And that simple is everything. But there is something even more profound, the body. A number of recent studies show that certain motor skills can develop without any conscious training. 3-year-olds can write beautifully. Teenagers can master martial arts techniques without any practice, and adults can play musical instruments with ease even after seeing them for the first time. Traditional science tries to explain it with genetics or environmental influences. But when there is no family history, no favorable environment, no training, then what is left? The possibility remains that the body is simply reproducing a memory stored in another dimension. Tesla claimed that the body is the visible terminal of a much larger system, and that when the soul finds a suitable body, talents naturally manifest. This theory is also supported by ancient spiritual traditions. In Tibet, trained monks recognize signs of reincarnation in children who are familiar with objects, rituals, and texts they never studied. In some African cultures, children who display unusual abilities are believed to have ancestral memories. And in some local traditions, certain abilities are believed to arise from ancestor dreams. This all points in the same direction. The soul knows. She doesn't know everything, but she knows she lived. She knows she loved. She knows she created with her own hands. And when she comes back, she tries to pick up where she left off. But this doesn't always work. We live in a world that suppresses what it doesn't understand. How many times have you suppressed your talent because you thought it wasn't good enough? How many times have you distrusted your intuition because it seemed too extraordinary? How many times have you wanted to do something, but the fear of looking ridiculous held you back? Tesla said that the greatest obstacle facing humanity is not ignorance, but fear, and this fear is always contrary to the frequency of creation. What if you are living below your true potential? What if this restlessness, this desire for self-expression, this urge, is all that you have come to offer the world? Ignoring a gift can be as painful as ignoring a wound, because a gift is the language of the soul, and every time you suppress it, you lose the ability to remember who you really are. But here's a secret. The gifts of the Spirit do not glorify us. They seem to align us. They are tools created by the Spirit itself to serve a higher purpose. When you activate your gift, you do more than simply manifest a talent. You become complete. Maybe that's why many people who follow their talents have a strange feeling. They aren't just doing something, they're becoming something. Tesla believed that humanity's greatest creation would not be a machine, but a fully awakened human being. And that awakening begins when you realize you are not here by chance. You are here because there is something that only you can express. Have you ever wondered what it would be like? Have you ever felt like there's something inside of you that wants to come out, even though it hasn't formed a form yet? So maybe this is your calling. Maybe your soul is reminding you of what it can do. And the first step is to simply listen. Listen to your creative instincts. Listen to your spontaneity. Listen to what brings you spontaneous joy. Listen to what makes you lose track of time. This is probably where the portal is located. A doorway that connects this life to the lives that came before. A doorway that connects your personal history to your soul mission. A doorway that when crossed can change everything. Not because you become someone else, but because you finally become who you always were. There are certain places in the world that evoke an inexplicable feeling inside us. You arrive there for the first time, and something stirs inside you. Your body shakes. Your eyes fill with tears for no reason. The air feels thick, as if time has folded in on itself. It's an irrational feeling, a memoryless recognition, a longing whose source you don't know, but you know it came from somewhere. Nikola Tesla said that space is not empty. He claimed that every place holds a vibration, an energetic signature that can be recorded, felt, and sometimes even remembered. He believed that certain souls are attached to certain geographic locations not by chance, but by resonance, because they lived there, they loved, suffered, created, died, and now they return, drawn to something invisible but eerily familiar. Maybe that's why you feel at home in cities you've never been to. Or maybe that's why some cultures, even distant ones, touch your heart inadvertently. Maybe it's the language, the food, the scenery, or the old music that seems to come from within you. Maybe it does. If the soul retains vibrational memory, as Tesla believed, it also retains the resonances of the places where its essence was formed. This affinity is not accidental. It is vibrational. It is as if, when you come into contact with this specific area, your soul is reactivated, and you sense it not with your mind, but with your body. You feel it. This feeling is not connected to any taste or cultural interest. It is much deeper, as if this place is saying, "You have been here before." and for a moment everything makes sense. But the most interesting thing is that this recognition can happen even in ordinary places. Sometimes it is not a historical monument. It is a lost village, a dirt road, a piece of forest, a deserted courtyard, and yet you feel something awakening inside you. What if the explanation defies logic? If we consider that the vibrational field of the soul interacts with the vibrational fields of the planet, it is natural that there are trigger points, places where dormant memories are awakened. For Tesla, this was simply a consequence of the mechanism of energy. Just as radio waves interfere with each other, there is interference between the soul and this place. The difference is that this interference is not felt by the ears, but by the soul. Have you ever felt like you know someone from your first conversation? This vibration is another manifestation of memory. Some people come into our lives with an area that feels strangely intimate. You look into their eyes and you know. You don't know what, but you know. It could be a friend you meet within seconds, or a love that explodes in your chest without words, or even a stranger who makes you feel very uncomfortable, as if their very presence stirs up some old wound you can't explain. According to Tesla, these connections are not new. They are simply being reproduced in a new form. These are vibrational patterns that recognize each other. These are souls whose paths have crossed before, under different personalities, but they still hold the energy of that connection. And when they meet again, there is a collision of fields, an immediate activation. This is why some relationships are so tense from the start. They don't just start, they return. They are reunions. And these reunions are not necessarily harmonious. Sometimes they are difficult. They bring with them pain, demands, and unfinished business. Because the soul, when it returns, brings with it everything that was left unfinished. For Tesla, these relationships followed rules more precise than coincidence. He believed that the universe operated by a kind of vibrational mathematics, where everything was connected by frequency. People, places, time, nothing escaped this invisible net. Everything was in harmony, even if the mind did not realize it. And when you feel that connection, something changes. Because you understand that you are not alone, that life is an ancient dance, woven of ups and downs and reunions. You begin to understand why some relationships hurt so much, why some places fill you up, why some faces seem like echoes of people you don't remember but never forgot. Imagine that everything you are feeling has happened before and is now being seen with new eyes. The world becomes a vibrating chessboard rather than a random scene, and spirit, silent and patient, attempts to guide you through these invisible signs. But how can we distinguish between what is the memory of the soul and what is a projection of the mind? The mind asks questions. The soul experiences. Self-awareness requires no proof. It is immediate, spontaneous, irrefutable. You don't know it because someone said so. You know it because you feel it. And this knowledge cannot be explained. It is experienced. There are reports of people visiting historical sites bursting into tears for no apparent reason. Some people have had vivid dreams of ancient civilizations a few days before visiting certain ruins. Some people have even experienced physical symptoms, chills, dizziness, rapid heartbeat. In many cases, these messages have been so specific that scientists have hypothesized collective genetic memory, or mystical resonance. But Tesla is said to have been talking about something else, the vibrational memory of the soul. This is not a new theory. Various spiritual traditions claim that there are sacred places in the world, crossroads of energy where the soul can remember who it is. For example, ancient Egyptians believed that temples were gateways to the Ka, the eternal spiritual essence. Australian Aborigines speak of dream places where ancestors wandered and left their traces over time. And in the East, practices such as Feng Shui and Vastu Shastra acknowledge the influence of space vibrations on the individual. Tesla, despite his scientific acumen, never underestimated the power of these invisible fields. He said that some frequencies can be measured, some can only be felt, and the most powerful are those that science has not yet been able to name, but which the spirit knows well. This means that every place has a vibrational history, and every soul holds a hidden map. When these meet each other, recognition happens, and with it, memories. Strange dreams happen, life-changing impulses come, unexpected encounters happen. What if this card is guiding you right now? What if your restlessness, your desire to travel, Your need to get away from certain people is not an escape but a withdrawal. Sometimes your soul tries to take you back to where it needs to be, and that place isn't always geographical. Sometimes it's a practice, a spiritual path, an art, a relationship, something that vibrates at the same frequency as your deepest calling. Tesla said that everything around us is energy in motion. If you learn to listen to this silent language, the world will show you the way. But it takes courage to follow the calling that comes not from the mind, but from the spiritual heart. Most people ignore these signs. They continue to live in environments that drain their energy. They remain in relationships that distort their energy. They live in cities that suffocate their essence. And then they wonder why they feel so tired, so empty, so sad. But the soul does not remain silent. It whispers in an even softer voice until you stop and start listening. And when you listen, you start to see things differently. The world is not flat. It has layers. You realize that there is something sacred about certain places, certain songs, certain scenes, that it is not imagination, it is memory. And this memory is yours, not of the mind, but of the soul. And maybe, just maybe, you're hearing this because your soul is trying to remind you where it came from and where it's trying to return. There is a silence that holds the answers, a quiet void that, when you allow it to, whispers the truths that the busy world won't let you hear. In that silence, your soul rests. And it is here, when you stop chasing what you've been told about success, happiness, or destiny, that you finally hear what has been trying to guide you all along. You already know. You just forgot. Nikola Tesla, despite being a scientist, was one of the few people who understood that there were higher forces behind matter. He said that the universe is an ocean of energy, and man, in his purest form, is a sensitive antenna connected to everything that vibrates. This antenna is not limited to the present. It also perceives the past. It also perceives the future. It also perceives other dimensions. And most of all, it perceives the self. If you have read this far, you probably know that there is nothing new in this. You may not have heard these words before, but you must have felt something in them, something that touched you, shook you, awakened you. Because this truth is not outside, it is inside. This video did not teach you anything, just reminded you. Remember, you are not a body that holds a soul. You are a soul that is temporarily using a body, an ancient consciousness of the world that claims to have all the answers, but has forgotten to ask the right questions. Have you ever wondered why some fears seem unfounded? Why do some abilities appear out of nowhere? Why do you feel a kinship with people, places, or cultures you've never met before? Why, even in the midst of routine, there's a sense of uneasiness, as if something is wrong? Maybe that's the case. Maybe the difference between who you are and what you became in order to survive is irrelevant, but now you have a choice. You can live as if everything is a coincidence, as if your life is a series of coincidences, or you can choose to live as a conscious soul, a soul that knows it is here for a reason. A soul that has gone through many worlds and now wants to find meaning, to leave something behind, to be transformed. And if you chose the second option, here's the plan. Simple, specific, realistic. Create an environment of silence for 5 minutes every day. No music, no mobile phones, no distractions. Just you and your breath. Don't think in this moment. Feel. Let whatever comes in. The spirit speaks quietly. And the more you listen, the more you trust it. Write down everything you think you already know, but you've never taken the time to learn. It could be a talent, an idea, a desire. Even if it seems meaningless, it is your personal vibrational language. Trust it. Observe your dreams for 7 consecutive days. When you wake up, write down any images, words, or feelings. Over time, patterns will begin to emerge. The unconscious mind is the mirror of the soul, and dreams are its most honest messengers. Stay away from anything that lowers your frequency. This applies to people, habits, content, and routines. You know what drains your energy, and you also know what nourishes you. Make more conscious choices even if they are small. An old soul needs space to thrive. Connect with something that expands you. It could be art, nature, spirituality, meditation, writing, dance, prayer. The medium doesn't matter. It's the vibration that matters. Make it a commitment to yourself. Not as an obligation, but as a way to remind yourself. Practice active listening to yourself. When a strong emotion arises, before you react, ask yourself, is this feeling really mine? Or is it a vibrational memory trying to show me something? Every pain has a source, and every source has a purpose. The soul is simply repeating what needs healing. Choose one task each week that reflects your soul. It can be something simple: forgiving someone, writing a letter, visiting a place, expressing gratitude. It is important to transform inner listening into a concrete feeling, because the soul works, and it works with presence. None of these require perfection. Only sincerity is required. None of these practices are magic. Rather, all of them are paths of return, and the return is always inward. Tesla said that the universe is a mirror. You attract what you are. Your vibrations shape your reality, and the greatest transformative power lies in the frequency you emit. And that frequency arises from your choices, your emotions, and most of all, your truth. The truth of the soul does not scream, it whispers. And if you ignore it, it becomes quiet, but it never disappears. You may not remember your entire life, but you carry your thoughts, your lessons, your wounds, your gifts. You are an extension of yourself, and if you feel something awakening at this moment, don't ignore it. Don't let that spark die out. Turn it into a fire, a quiet fire that warms your consciousness, lights your path, burns fear to ashes, and awakens the courage to be who you are. The world needs awakened souls. Souls who choose to live purposeful lives. Souls who literally stop asking for permission to exist. Are you one of them? If so, start today. Don't wait for the pain to grow. Don't wait for a crisis to strike. The calling is already there. It's right here, right now, inside you, ready to be heard, accepted, and brought to life. And if there's something inside you that motivates you to pursue this path, don't do it alone. Subscribe to the channel now. Join this community of curious people who, just like you, feel that something great is happening. If this video touched your heart, like it. This small effort will help spread the message to those who need it. And if you want, share your experience in the comments. You can do so anonymously if you want. This is a platform for sharing with truth, respect, and honesty. Every awakened soul helps remind others. And maybe that's why you are here. Welcome.